The best practices around minimizing the amount of food waste that a household or a business or a manufacturer generates is when you think of the EPA Food Recovery Hierarchy, starts with source reduction. Just prevent it. Don't make it in the first place, and that has a lot to do with buying practices. For example, getting a really good sense of your inventory, especially if you're in the food service sector. Same for households, really checking in your refrigerator before you go to the store. Then it's inevitable that there will be a surplus because of those same reasons. You think you're going to consume it at a household level, or you look at your patterns of consumption at, servings at a restaurant or a college, and you end up with extra. That's where you plug into the recovery and the donation part of the hierarchy, which is the second part. And we see so much more opportunity as this awareness has grown about donation of excess food, that programs have really sprouted up both for perishable but not prepared food, as well as prepared food that is edible but hasn't been served. So that whole sector is teeming with innovation and opportunity and finding cost efficiencies. Once you get to the point of the food not being edible for humans, historically, food waste was fed to animals. Look at the history of New York City's garbage. The hog farmers from Jersey would go over into the city and pick up the scraps and go back and feed them to the hogs. And so that is an industry practice, an agricultural practice that has gotten a little more complicated. Not all of them can have meat, or, it's that kind of thing. After animal feed, get into best practices around food waste, recovery for recycling, starting with collection, best practices, educating out the wazoo about source separation and contamination, and training and retraining, to collection itself, lots of different ways to do that. And then the best practices really come up when that truck or vehicle arrives at the composting facility. And it's really more in composting than anaerobic digestion, because with anaerobic digestion, typically when that food waste arrives, it is in a liquid or slurry form and goes right into a tank, so it's not really exposed to the outdoors. Composting, the truck has to be unloaded, and there's a series of best practices that must be followed. Must. No ifs, ands, or buts, because you're getting a lot of highly putrescible, soupy, and sometimes smelly, depending on the time of the year, material that you have got to mix quickly with a carbon and get it into a pile and get it covered efficiently, effectively, and within the regulatory requirements.